Yeah, last episode I was saying I have posted continuously for 8 weeks or something.
And then got jinxed.
Yes, and then got jinxed. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Playstyle podcast. I am Ishan. I usually make games as a profession, and making games for so long, I have been missing kind of discourse in this whole game making talk that usually happens. It's mostly with people who make games. So I started this podcast as something to discuss with people who really play games or sometimes maybe don't even play a lot of games. So on that note, with new episode, I have another new guest. I'll let her introduce herself and tell where she's joining from, what she does, and cool stuff that she's into. And then we will talk about games with her. So, hi Bidisha, welcome.
Thank you, Ishan. Thank you for inviting me for this wonderful podcast. I am Bidisha Bhatacharya. I right now am in India and I work with Scrollstack, which is a creator platform that's Ishan is also a part of, and he's a wonderful creator of Scrollstack.
Yes, that's what I called you
So
here for, to tell good things about me.
absolutely, absolutely. And definitely, I mean, it did take me some time to respond back to this request. I apologize for that, but I'm super excited. This is also my first podcast, so pretty much a novice in this area. But looking forward to the conversation that we'll be having.
Awesome. Welcome to the podcast and thank you for saying good things about me. I like hearing good things about myself. And I am like this podcast has been the first podcast for a lot of people who have already been here. So that's a cool thing that I'm doing as well, I think. So that being said, let's talk about games. That's what we are here for. And first time when I reached out to Vidisha, she's like, "Yeah, I don't really play games. I have last game I have played was so long ago, and I'm not really the correct person for this." And I was like, "Then exactly, you are the person that I would like to talk to because why aren't you playing games?" But we'll come to that. Before that, let's just start. If I say games, what's the first thing that comes to your mind or anything that you think about, and we will take it from there.
So, yeah, just as Ishan mentioned, when he first reached out to me, I was like, me? Why me? Because I would be like in the last lap probably when it comes to understanding games of any kind. So, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about games would be Road Rash, because that was what my cousin brother had taught me. So he was one of those kiddos in the family who was very much into gaming. So he introduced me to Road Rash, and I still remember I was very, very young back then, and he had a desktop computer. This is something that would take us back to the 90s because laptops were not like a thing
Yeah.
in the house. It was always desktop computer, and I received my desktop computer when I went to class 6 because that's when computer applications became a part of the curriculum.
For studies,
And
right? Yeah.
yeah, for studies, yeah. Otherwise, you don't get things. It has to be for studies and stuff. So I guess that's where my brother had given me a CD. He had gotten the game from somewhere, and he taught me. And then I started playing it at home, and it was pretty interesting. I won't say that I was amazing at it,
Yeah.
but
You don't
definitely
have
I
to
found
have
it as
fun.
a yeah, true. But it was definitely like a stress buster for me. I mean, there isn't any real stress, but when you're in the ICSE board, I guess stress is also a part
School
of the
stress.
curriculum.
Yes, it
So
is.
yeah,
Any school has it,
yeah.
I would say, so it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think that's where it began, and then obviously there was a drop. Instead of like kind of indoor games and stuff was something that we played in general, Ludo and all of that with family stuff. But yeah, the first video game would be Road Rash, and then the next I remember was Temple Run.
Oh, wow. You didn't play for
Yeah.
20 years.
No, I
No,
actually didn't. I would say, I mean, to that extent, because a lot of friends tried to sort of encourage me to play the games on, I guess, Warcraft or things on Harry Potter, because I was a Potterhead and I used to read the books a lot. But there were people around me who used to say, you need to learn even a couple of games that were online,
yeah, there were a lot
where
of
you
Harry
sort
Potter
of,
games. Yes.
yeah, where you get a lot of rewards and stuff, and you feel amazing, and you get allotted houses by the sorted hat and stuff, which was pretty interesting. But then somehow I wasn't really, I mean, that wasn't sort of my calling, even when I would imagine a stress buster factor that way. Because it was always the creative side, probably, for me. But yeah, Temple Run also happened in a very hilarious fashion, I would say.
Oh, nice.
When we were doing our masters,
Yeah.
I usually come across as somebody who's this goody goody first bencher kind of a person, which
Yes,
wasn't really,
I can vouch for that. Yes.
which wasn't really the case throughout, I would say. I mean, till my bachelor's, definitely, but during my master's, I sort of gradually drifted towards the backbench. And we were a couple of friends sitting behind, and I still remember Madhurima had taught me Temple Run, and then lectures were done. I mean, we used to study the day before, run behind somebody who had taken notes,
Yeah.
perhaps. But we used to play Temple Run
Ah, nice.
throughout the day, lectures after lectures. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that was that.
nice. Lot of good memories related to games. See,
Yeah,
you have played
right.
more than enough. Like you already mentioned like three games, and that's three more than anything I expected you to be playing. But like great
Awesome.
example with Road Rash as well. Like that is also one of my favorites from old times. I used to play it a lot. I have a lot of stories about it. And like you said, like other games like Ludo and for example the board games and stuff. That's what
Right.
I mean as well. Like when it comes to games, it's everything. Like you can, there are different kinds of it, and there are sometimes that you kind of think of it as, oh, this just means video games, like if I use this word. It was also
Yeah.
a similar discussion I had with another friend of mine in one of the previous podcasts, where she was like, oh, I'm not really a gamer. And yes, if you have played it, you are technically a gamer, and that's more than enough. Because it is the word has been used very at different places in different contexts, where when you say games or gamer to someone, it is very odd. And I think it is a very cultural thing for us, considering like me speaking to different people, and that's how I gauge it. Now let's like think about all the games that you have played, and I would like to
Right.
know what is it that you remember that you liked uh, in a game or something. Like I understand that you don't play enough, or you haven't played so much often because you are the goody goody first venture kind of kid. But what was it that whenever you played, that this was something that you liked in any game?
Okay, so if you look at both the games that I played, they kind of had the factor of adrenaline rush. And that kind of was something that I would look forward to probably. And I always had somebody to play with. I wasn't someone, every time I was playing one of these games, it was always either with my brother or with a friend of mine. So it got even more so interesting. And
Mhm.
definitely the competitive, I wouldn't call it competitiveness because I hadn't reached that point in a game where, you're done with a couple of levels. And then you sort of get into that zone of, how much did you, which level are you in? And stuff. But definitely, I would say the adrenaline
Ah,
rush.
nice. But then, did you like? You said you tried these two games because now, since you mentioned these two, we'll just talk about these two games.
Okay.
Because someone recommended or something. But didn't you then try to find something else which is similar or not interested at all? And again, I'm not judging you or saying like, why didn't you, but just as a general curious question.
No, right. When I started playing Temple Run, that was when definitely there was also a couple of students who were interested in Subway Surfer, I think.
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah. I'm sorry if I'm not naming it right,
No,
but
it's named perfectly. And again, I will put a disclaimer that I am currently involved in working on Subway Surfers.
okay.
So we will continue.
Oh, great, great. I did enjoy the game, but to an extent, but definitely it was a little more overwhelming for me compared to the Temple Run because I guess of a couple of factors. I just felt that it was not just only one sort of entity that was running and you had to take care of a couple of things that were coming in the way, which is also the similar case for Temple Run. But somewhere, I guess Temple Run gave that feel where you could just concentrate on only one particular sort of factor or an
Yeah,
entity, I would say.
yeah, I understand,
Yeah,
and it's different for different kind of players, and even
right.
though they are kind of similar games, but they are something different as well. So
True,
yeah,
true. Yeah.
yeah, and you don't have to say good things just because I said that.
No.
I'm working on it. So, oh yeah, so nice. This adrenaline rush kind of angle of why games, mostly video games, make sense. Also
Right.
make sense. But then coming to like you mentioned Ludo as an example, or any,
Hmm.
is there any other board games or something that you played, or like was there some a different kind of incentive that you thought while playing Ludo or any other board game that you can remember?
The very usual kind were carom and stuff,
Yeah.
carom and table tennis and stuff. But apart from that, I vividly recall, which was also when I started working, I was there for 7 months in Hyderabad with IPAC, which was where we had a four-member gang. Specifically, I was the only girl in the gang. And so four of us, we thought of, doing something really interesting after an entire day of work. And we were approaching the general elections. I was working with IPAC with Mr. Prashant Kishore. So we were campaigning for a couple of parties, political parties, and which was where work was pretty intense.
Yeah.
So we wanted a getaway or something like that. And because I am a teetotaler, so every time partying while I just sit with my virgin mojito was somewhere they started feeling bad for me. And they said, why don't we do something called Mystic Room? And I said, okay, fine. Life is pretty scary already. Why get into a room and get even more scared? Figure out a clue and stuff. And that's where we got to know of this place in Hyderabad, which was very close to Jubilee Hills, that area, where they had this cafeteria where you can go and four people are required to play board games,
Yeah,
and they
like
will
a
sort
board
of
game
guide
cafe,
you through.
yes.
Yeah, and they will sort of guide you through, and it's awesome. I mean, you can have all the chicken pakoras and stuff. This you can eat them, have a chat, and the adda that we talk about,
Yeah.
and at the same time play board games. And this has been my experience. I've fared much better in board games than video games, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah, and
So
that's
that's
perfectly fine.
something.
So we are not just talking
Yeah,
about video games, even though I work
right,
on it.
right.
Like board games are also valid.
Yeah. So that was pretty much my experience, and I used to enjoy. Not only me, I think four of us started enjoying it so much that we had pretty much made it a once or twice in a month thingy where we used to just hang out there.
But
So yeah.
then there, would you like try different board games, or is there anything one favorite that you remember like, oh, this was cool because I like this part of it? Because I
There
know
was
that
some.
the like these board game cafes have a lot of collection of a good
Exactly.
collection of board games, and you can try out different types like co-op games versus games, etc., etc.
Yeah, so there was one I still remember. I mean, I've forgotten the name of it, but it was something that's gotten to do with very basic maths, very basic maths, and a couple of puzzle sort of, I don't want to call it a cube or a Rubik's cube kind of a thing, but
Yeah.
something related to that, which was pretty interesting because it was a little mind-boggling and at the same time fun. So yeah, that was one. I'm really trying hard to recall the name, but I
Yeah, it's okay.
cannot.
Yeah, even I'm trying to think which one it could be, but maybe if someone listening can guess, then they can reach
Yeah,
out to me. So I'll let
yeah,
you know the
right,
name if
right.
someone tells me about it.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, cool. So yeah, the board games are also interesting thing. And then, is it a different thing that you look for when you say play board games? Like you said, like with Road Rash or with Temple Run, it was this adrenaline rush. I always mess up
A
that
tricky
word, but
word. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no.
So that is what keeps you going, or that's a thing that you have to react at a quick pace and all that. When with board games, it's not mostly like that. So,
Hmm.
do you like the more chill vibe of the board games, or would you like something which is also same adrenaline rush on board games?
So I would go for board games any day because of the factor. I mean, I would have said this chilled vibe and a fact that it sort of, I wouldn't say it calms you down, but it's not like meditation or something like that. But it sort of brings in that cordial atmosphere where you're just sitting, relaxing, and you're still sort of having fun playing something. And definitely, it's a more warm sort of an environment, I would say, when you're just in a board game, for me, compared to playing a video game.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. And again, no right answers. So for you is whatever it feels, it's the correct answer. So
Right.
that's great. And now I'll come to the part where, like, since you haven't played so many games, I know you played
Yeah.
Temple Run long time back.
Yeah.
Why? Like, what is it that made you not play games? Not just board like video games, but could be board games or anything. But is there anything that you hated about it, or is there anything that you dislike about any particular kind of games, anything?
So I will be pretty honest here. It was never something wrong with the game, I would say. I mean, I enjoyed that pretty much. Definitely, the factor that I am a little more inclined towards, art and music and writing and stuff, which was where whenever I needed to relax, probably that was
Yeah.
my go-to. But also for a fact that the people whom I knew who intensively played games used to use a lot of lingos, which I did not understand, which was a little overwhelming for me. That used to happen, but then I'm sort of used to it because even my brothers used to do it, which was where, I mean, they used to do it a little more, I would say. But that was where I felt that, and this is also a point that I would like to mention, which is why I find your podcast so different that way. It's a little unique in a way that, it's very easy for you to interact with somebody who would speak to you in that typical lingo or those
Yeah.
codes or, in that sort of language, a gamer language, I would say. But for you to speak to somebody who has very limited knowledge in this area is something I would say that's pretty much interesting.
Yes, and yeah, that's my goal for this as well, because when you look at generally people who play games, not everyone
Right.
is a person who knows so much in detail and like
Hmm.
knows a particular kind of lingo, as you said, or some terms and things that are followed. But then
Right.
most of the people are something. like just playing games as a kind of entertainment or something like that. So there is this difference between the words and the meanings that we have
Right,
associated to what it actually
right.
means. Because now you play Temple Run, yeah, for me you are a gamer, like you are audience who I would like to interact with, and I would like to know why did you like it, why didn't you like it, etc. And that's
Right.
what I'm trying with this podcast as well. So anyone listening, like even if you think you are like, oh, I haven't played games for so long, I'm very sure you would have played one thing or the other. So you should
Yeah.
definitely talk to me. But yeah, coming back to your game journey, now you like I understand because you had a lot of people who were very like into this whole gaming scene, that you didn't feel that you related to that, and that kept you away from games in some way. So
Precisely. Yeah, that would be the primary reason I would say, because I did not find any game uninteresting, or any particular specific reason. If I'd have to give, there isn't a specific reason for
yeah,
any game.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and fair enough, because like overall you could have tried fewer games than other people to
Right.
actually find out what you hate about it. So that's a fair point. And also,
Yeah.
since you mentioned that you go to reading or like making beautiful art, which I know, uh, so and
Thank you.
that takes a lot of precedence over playing games. So that's perfectly valid reasoning. I'm not judging you, it's okay, but you should play more games.
Yeah, I'll definitely try. I think this would be a takeaway for
Yeah,
me, this conversation, so that, after this, I mean, by the end of this conversation, I am determined to at least, start playing a particular game,
yeah,
and definitely then reach out to you that, yeah, hey, Shan, you have inspired me.
yes, I
Definitely. And
I
I'm
would
sure
love
you
to.
must be
And
inspiring.
yeah, and that would be great. Like my best case scenario would be you take up like playing a lot of games, try out new games, and then few episodes down the line we do a revision episode of, oh, what do you think
Right,
now?
right.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
So on that note,
absolutely.
what would it take for you to, so if I want to say show you a new game, like, oh yeah, why don't you play this? What do you think
Hmm.
would you look for if you want to play that game?
So for me, I think to begin with would be something that I would relate to. Now, what I mean when I say I would relate to is when it comes to fiction, something that I've read, which is why I keep saying that probably I'll go back to something like a Harry Potter, from the Harry Potter genre, or probably something that I've read. I don't know if there are games on probably the Lord of the Rings and stuff. So, which is where I would say that these are the games that where I will be able to relate to. I have a little context in it. I know at least the basic sort of
The lore of
environment
it,
that
yeah.
I'm entering. Yeah, the digital environment. So, yeah, that's something that I would say.
Ah, interesting. But then, like, there are a lot of games which also have their own grand storylines, which have their own lore, and
Right.
like which has started from a game rather than a
Hmm.
book or something like that. Would
Got
that
it.
also interest, or would it be a, like, are you thinking it as a first point? If I want to play something, I would go to something familiar.
Um, I would say something familiar in the fact that not something. I mean, if you're speaking on the line of going back to Temple Run, or
No, or
those kind
like
of games.
generally any game, like, oh, I want to try a new game, like you said, with
Hmm.
I would go back to something which has a Harry Potter lore on it, because that
Exactly.
IP is
Yes.
something I relate to, rather
Right.
than
Right.
something else which is like completely new IP and everything.
Exactly, because it just due to the fact that it would take me a lot more time to sort of understand probably in I fear that I might lose interest in the midway, which is where I would probably go for a game that I have a basic context about, a basic idea about the storyline, somewhere if I've read it. So yeah.
Yeah, because this is a great point as well. Because if you see recently, there are like games which are using different popular IPs in order to build on top of it. So it
Okay.
kind of helps the popular IP to be more accessible for people who play games, but also for people who don't really play games, it becomes like an interesting hook for, oh, this is a Harry Potter game that has released
Absolutely.
recently, so I would go
Yeah.
and try it because I relate to Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And that is one of the trends that has been in the market for a long time. Like Star Wars did it with Angry Birds really long time back, to until recently there is a new Harry Potter Match 3 game, which is out like a year ago or something. But yeah,
I see.
and that's what this like proves or whatever. Like this is that interesting point. Like you would be
Mm.
that kind of audience where, oh, there is something Harry Potter, I relate to Harry Potter, and then I play the game, rather than oh, this is a game where you have to match three things. I like match three things, and that's why I'll play this game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ah, nice. I think that was super interesting chat and a lot of nice insights that I got, and probably people listening who may be working on games got from this. And
I
yeah, do
hope
I
you're not
have
laughing
no,
at
no,
this
no one laughs
conversation.
at it. It's okay. But that's what, like, I again, like reiterating this point again, like for
No, no, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
that it's everyone plays games, no one really like relates to it as much in a
Mm-hmm.
very hardcore sense, if like
Mm-hmm.
to use the very gamey term for it, that oh, I relate to this. But then there is a lot of times that you play and forget a game, or you might play for some time, or you, like you said, you have engaged not really for a long time, and there is
Mm-hmm.
something that might be interesting for you again.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that's all the questions I have. I mean, not questions as
Excellent.
such, but yeah, it was a good discussion. I don't have anything more to add to this.
You know, I really did enjoy because it was a pretty power-packed day for me since morning. So I was looking forward to this conversation. And definitely, this is kind of a clarion call for me that, you should go ahead, just check out the couple of games that are out there. Because I feel there was this craze with Candy Crush as well in between, which was something that I didn't find very intriguing, as a result of which I never tried, but probably something associated with fiction. I mean, it's all fiction, but yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
familiar fiction.
yeah,
Thank you so much for having this conversation, and
absolutely, my pleasure.
yeah, for others who are listening, thank you for listening. And I'll not commit to any being like consistent and all that again, because I'll jinx it, I know. So next episode will come whenever it comes.
I think that's the bbest promise that you can keep.
Correct. But there will
Yeah.
be a next episode. So at least I say that so that I can hold myself to it. So till then, you know where to find me. You follow my Instagram page on playstyle.podcast, and you can listen to this podcast everywhere right now, like any podcasting platform, and also on Scrollstack, which Bidisha works for. And that's it from my side. Is there anything else you want to plug in, Bidisha?
No, definitely. I mean, once it's on Scrollstack, I will also ensure that it's promoted well,
Yes.
because now even I'm a part of it. So it's very interesting, and definitely for amazing podcasters like Ishan out there. If you want to choose a platform where you can create, where you can speak to the people, you are sort of the topic that you are kind of specializing in, I would say, or you think that you have a hatke wala idea, a different idea, out of the box thinking, Scrollstack is the platform for you. We ensure that we make sure that your content reaches out worldwide, across countries, and people listen to you. The outreach and the engagement is something that we promise. And definitely, Ishan, being a creator right now on this podcast, can, I guess, vouch for it,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, definitely. I have been using
Yeah.
the platform for so long, and that's how I know Vidisha. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And this is that's why I guess I can vouch for a fact that I look forward to working with Scrollstack. I enjoy every single day working with Scrollstack because I get to meet such amazing creators. So
yeah,
yeah, I
you
think
have been far too kind. Like we should stop it, and then we will stop recording. Then you can be kinder on normal call.
no, no, it's okay. It's okay. So I think Scrollstack is definitely, as I was saying, it's the platform for you. You can charge for it, keep it free, charge your followers. You can ask for support, which is a very similar option to the Buy Me a Coffee. And for any further queries, if you want to know more about Scrollstack, reach out to us at support@scrollstack.com. I have advertised enough. Thank
Awesome.
you,
Yes,
Ishan.
and I'll put the relevant links in the show notes as well, so that you can go
Great,
click on it. And
great.
even if you like, go click, reach out, or just follow my podcast anywhere, man. I
Yeah.
need more listeners. So it's
Awesome.
fine.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Great.
Thank you, Shan.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.